Hello, welcome to the Inspire Hope podcast, where we're planting hope for kingdom growth. There's nothing more inspiring than God being at work in people's lives through their stories. We are Rachel and Samuel, and we are the hosts of this podcast.
Hey, Rachel, this week's episode, I have the privilege to listen to your story. I'm pretty excited about that. Rachel is the founder of Hope Through Hard Times Ministry. She started it in January of 2020 with a passion to disciple people into a deeper relationship with Jesus. She has become aware and is regularly learning the difference between giving God control over her life versus herself, and seeks to encourage others to lean into Jesus in all seasons of life. This is exciting. I'm excited to hear your story, Rachel. And then this is what's going to happen. We'll return to share the lessons we learn from Rachel's story and offer you guys some application and Bible verses that will help you apply into your own life.
My story today begins in the summer of 2008. I was 21 and trying to figure out what God wanted for my life. My parents had recently divorced and both headed towards remarriage with other people. I had finished Bible college and was dealing with sin and issues in my own life. So I was flying into Haiti with a broken and confused heart. I didn't know what to do or why I was going, other than I had a growing interest in mission work. Haiti was the last place I wanted to go. I had Europe or Asia in my mind, but my mentor told me I was going to Haiti. I hit culture shock the first day. I remember sobbing in the missionary's kitchen, asking my mentor why I was there. I didn't know the language, unlike most on the team. The only other person that didn't had an excitable personality that attracted people to him. I, on the other hand, had nothing in common with anyone. I was shocked by my leader's response while I cried. She burst out laughing in excitement. With a broken voice, I said, "What are you laughing about?" She told me, "Rachel, you did the work before you got here to make your heart vulnerable to the Lord. Now he's using that and already working in you. You're going to learn so much in your time here because you're already open to receiving what God wants to show you. This is a good thing." I was grateful she shared that truth with me because that's exactly what the Lord did. There's been very few times in my life that I have learned so much from him in just a few short weeks. The greatest story I want to share today with you, though, was a simple moment that held such profound vision for my future. There were a few days between running a kids camp and a youth leaders camp. The mission director asked another girl and I to pick weeds from the gravel pathway in front of his home. Though young, his wife was stuck in bed sick for a few days, so we helped pick up some of the extra tasks. I took time to pray for his wife while we worked and thought of ways I could help them. My heart was burdened because there was so much this couple wanted to do with their ministry, but she was often held back by this ongoing illness. An idea sprouted in my mind while I worked, picking weeds and praying, of starting a ministry to missionaries. I knew that many of them get burnout from the heavy workload. The idea was to travel to where missionaries live and help them in their homes. It was to be able to also build a retreat center that they could come and find rest, encouragement, and reconnection with the Lord. I knew this idea was from God because I was overwhelmed by it, and yet had peace and joy fill my heart with the thought. It was far beyond what I was capable of doing myself, which excited me. If God wanted it to happen, it would. I returned home and continued to pray about it. I tried to start it many times on my own without success. The more I prayed about doing it in Haiti, the more my heart was drawn to Ireland. I went on a discovery trip there in 2009, thinking I might have the retreat center there in order to connect with the European and Asian missionaries. I returned again in 2012 to try out the practical side of serving the missionaries where they lived. It invigorated me. I had so much joy during that time. However, because of a few different factors, Ireland didn't work out. Though I was no longer working with the mission organization, I thought I might be able to partner with them in a different capacity. I met with the director in Canada in the spring of 2013 and pitched my idea to him. I had proposed living in either Windsor or Toronto, Ontario, Canada, as these two cities were near international airports. Then he suggested London, Ontario. London? I thought, what's in London? It was exactly 2 hours in between both of those cities. The impact of that meeting didn't dawn on me until I was sitting on my honeymoon in Mexico in February 2014, realizing I married a man living just outside of London. The Lord brought me there on purpose. So I joined the mission team at church. I thought that would be a great way to serve. I could work with the missionaries connected to my church and provide hospitality to them when they came on home ministry assignment. Then, eventually, see if the church would send me to their various fields to meet them there. But again, things didn't line up quite right, so I dropped that idea. Through all of these events not actively resulting in the dream, I grew frustrated and gave up on it 5 years ago. I didn't know why God would give it to me if it wasn't going to work, so I let it go. I figured he would work it out if he really wanted it to happen. I focused more on my job I had and my marriage, but it sat in the back of my mind, always wondering. Through a few very difficult circumstances I share in my book, Sustaining Hope, I came to a point in the summer of 2019 where I felt a calling from the Lord to start a blog ministry. I knew there would eventually be more to it, but this was the start that God gave me. Through much prayer and research, I decided to call it Hope Through Hard Times. My husband Michael and I were brainstorming what symbolized hope one day. I looked at pictures of options, seeing things like lights and a dove. That's when I came across a picture of a plant growing out of hard ground. I sent it to my sister-in-law, who's a graphic designer, and she came up with the logo of a leaf sprouting out of the word hope. It wasn't until I looked at the finished logo that it hit me. God instantly flashed the memory of my time picking the weeds in Haiti. It was in that very hard season of my life that he planted the idea of ministry. I would have never thought that it would have started the way it did, but God, in his great wisdom and patience, took me through years of character building to prepare me for this time. The retreat is still far off in the distance somewhere, and I still have a passion to support missionaries. But God has expanded it to being intentional to discipling Christian adults in general. I've picked up the dream of the retreat again, but I've learned that the Lord will work it out in his timing and ways, not mine. I found that it's in the waiting of our calling that the Lord solidifies our identity so that we don't get lost in the assignment he's given over the relationship we have with him. I've got to tell you that this journey that God's building from my time in Haiti continues to fascinate me, even to the point of starting this podcast. Sammy and I became friends during our time in Haiti. He reached out to me in July of 2020 to ask if I'd be interested in starting a podcast with him after he found out I started Hope Through Hard Times. We've both walked with the Lord through multiple seasons of suffering, discovering the healing power of the Lord in our lives and the impact of the stories he's written in them. I wasn't ready at the time, but here we are today. I'm so excited to do this with you, Sammy, and see where God continues to work.
Hey, Rachel, I am super excited to start this with you. Rachel, as I was listening to your story, and this is what came to mind, that God is the best economist. He doesn't let anything go wasted, even our stupidity, even our bad choices, the decision we made, that's not, he's not happy with this stuff. He never let them go wasted. He gonna use them. And that is the proof. Like your experience in Haiti, and how many years ago? That was like, I don't even remember. And that was the first time I met you, where my English you couldn't even understand a word of English I was saying, probably at that time. But hey, that experience changed a lot in you. Would you say so?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was, like I said, a profound moment in time that would project my future.
Yeah. So, Rachel, what is one thing, like when we hear your story, if you want us to go home and think about, what is one thing you want us to take away from that story?
I think the thing that struck me the most is near the end of my story, where I say it's in the waiting of our calling that the Lord solidifies our identity so that we don't get lost in the assignment he's given over the relationship we have with him. A lot of times I find that when people, especially in their 20s, are so frustrated that they don't know their, as we quote, calling or purpose. Mm-hmm. But I found that our main purpose is to be in relationship with Jesus. That is like put the blinders on, get focused in, and grow with him. And from that, you learn what your assignment is, because the assignment can change over time, depending on where you are in your life. But the character building is what God's really after, because that's where the eternal focus is going to be.
Yeah. You know, Rachel, I experienced a lot of sufferings, and I believe you did too, and you share part of that. And you just wrote a book, right? Tell me a little bit about the book.
Yeah. So Sustaining Hope is a testimony of my husband and I walking through our marriage so far. We've only been married 8 years, but we have experienced family loss, infertility, post-concussion syndrome, a bone marrow donation, and working through the financial challenges that all brings. But the biggest aspect of that book that I really want people to grab hold of is the sustaining hope that we have in Christ, that we learn in those sufferings that all of the worldly things that we look to and hold on to, even relationships in people, don't last, that it is Christ alone. And so the more we learn to walk through suffering with open hands and surrendered hearts, the more we learn to lean into Jesus, the more strength we have and confidence that comes from that in everyday life.
So let's say if I'm interested, I have the book already, but hey, if I'm interested, where can we find the book?
So it's at my website at hopethroughhardtimes.org. It's on Kobo e-reader and on Amazon as well, if you want to check that out. Awesome. So Rachel, thank you so much for your story. It was inspiring, and your story inspire others as well. So hey, thank you all for joining us at Inspire Hope. If this podcast has inspired you and added value to you, would you mind leaving a review and recommending it, the podcast, to your friends and family? It would mean a lot to us. And if you are interested in sharing your story with us, why don't you email us at inspirehopepodcast@gmail.com. And have a great day, everyone. And remember, your story can inspire someone today. So till next time.